Hello. Hey guys, we got a great video lined up for you. We're going to be talking about the housing situation in Final Fantasy XIV. It's been a big controversial thing, so I gave a live reaction on my live stream, twitch.tv/Bwana, and we talk about that whole situation. So if you like the video, please comment, like, subscribe, join my Patreon, patreon.com/Bwana to help out. Enjoy the video. Okay, let's talk about the Final Fantasy XIV housing lottery system. This right here has been getting a lot of attention since this past Saturday. Those of you who don't know what the lottery system was, this was a replacement system put in place to help alleviate the housing strain that's happening in Final Fantasy XIV, the MMORPG from Square Enix. The big issue, we call it Housing Savage because it's like a dungeon for us. It's like a hard boss. The issue beforehand is that it was really hard to get a house and you had to do weird things like spam a button for 20-30 hours straight in order to try to get a house. And they're trying to do this lottery system where you're supposed to buy a lottery ticket, they draw a lottery ticket, and if you win, you get the house. So no more standing in front of the placard spamming buttons for 20+ hours. Now you should be able to just buy a ticket, and then a few days they'll pick a ticket and then you'll see if you won or not. This past Saturday was supposed to be the result phase of the very first lottery that happened since patch 6.1 when this was introduced. There was a brand new housing area in Ishgard called Imperium, where a bunch of new houses were added, and people were getting in line trying to get a house in Final Fantasy XIV. It is prime real estate, pun intended. So what happened was, it didn't work. Long story short, they've gone into detail. This post right here was the initial post, which was on Saturday. A bad thing happened, where the lottery results were drawn and it drew the number 0 and nobody won. So when you go and you win the lottery, it's like, okay, you didn't win, better luck next time. They give you a parting message and then you can refund your money. So people refunded their money. They got their money back that they put in for the lottery ticket. And when they go back to the placard, it showed that nobody won. So the housing plots are sitting there with no owner with a failed lottery draw. Several of us have witnessed this with just one person in the lottery, and you thought you had the house. This guy. I was the only person in my lottery, and I thought I was going to win. I got the same error. It drew a 0 and told me better luck next time. You lost. Some people had, I've heard stories. I haven't confirmed this, but people said there was like more than one person. There were like 5, 10, 15, 20 people in lotteries, and it still drew a 0. And people didn't get their house. But there were successes. There are people out there who did get houses. They're having fun. They're decorating. They're spending all their money. They're grinding money. They're doing a bunch of stuff. They're having a lot of fun. There's a subset of people who got it, and there's a subset of people who didn't. All in all, it's a pretty big pain point for a lot of players, and the player base is kind of up in arms. It's a pain point because housing has been a big problem in this game since housing was available. It's never been in a good spot. Housing has always been bad. It's either been overrun by bots, and then they put the anti-bot system in place, which made it really bad for players, honest players, to even get a house. We were promised we were going to get an update. We finally got the update, and then the update failed. So there's a lot of frustration. Housing plays a lot into the RP element of the game, and just another pillar of Final Fantasy XIV. Since Saturday, Square Enix has posted, I got 4 messages. I think they posted more. But they posted the original message on Saturday explaining what the problem is and that they're working on it. And then they posted a follow-up from Yoshi P himself, the director of Final Fantasy XIV, producer and director, on a Saturday, this was really late Japan time. And he says, "I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience caused by the issue with the housing lottery system. Allow me to explain the current situation and our next steps. First, we understand that this is a major issue and are prioritizing our investigation into the matter. We are working to identify the issue in a corresponding program. However, as the process is very complex, there are many patterns involved for the lottery conditions. It will require some time to pinpoint the problem." And they're talking about what it is, and then they summarize it, right? Now, there's another follow-up. There was follow-up 2. I don't think I got them all right. There's another follow-up. Here's Yoshi P again. Says, "Hey, this is Naoki Yoshida, producer and director. Once again, please allow me to apologize. In the early hours of this morning," this was today. Again, the problem was found on Saturday. Here we are Monday. "Please allow me to apologize for the disruption caused by the problems the housing lottery introduced in patch 6.1. In the early hours of this morning, we identified a processing issue as well as a server-side program issue. and will be taking the following steps to address them: restoring the lottery results data, fixing the identified issues, and verifying the fixes. Okay, so long story short, they're going to have to do world maintenance to fix this, right? They're gonna maintain the data. People who got their houses are going to keep their houses, and people who didn't get their houses or the results were tainted, they're going to redo the results. There won't be a rollback. There won't be any kind of data loss. All the integrity should be intact if these posts are correct. They even went as far as to go into detail. I don't know if it was this post or the next one, but there was a post where they went into gratuitous detail as to the technical problems that surrounded the issue. It's kind of bad. It's probably the worst look for Final Fantasy since 6.1 came out. There's been other issues as well. There's been other problems, but this one has been advertised for I don't know how long. People have been eagerly anticipating this problem, and for it to ultimately just fail, not necessarily just like have glitches here and there. It just failed. This was a hard failure, and it points to their QA department, which Final Fantasy fans such as myself and other people have given them a lot of credit for taking the time to test things and to validate things before they release them and not just do half testing. This was a case of, it sounded like a service architecture. It sounds like a SOAP thing. Sounds like a service-oriented architecture thing where, not SOAP, but SOA, where one server, which was the lottery server, did not communicate properly with the housing server. So the lottery server sent the data over to the lottery server sent the data over to the housing server, sent the results, and the housing server didn't receive the results. So that's why everybody was getting zeros. So that sounds like a very basic test case. You know, it sounds like a very basic test case. And given that some passed and some failed, somebody missed some kind of edge condition. Some sort of I wouldn't even call it edge condition. Somebody missed this condition of how this actually occurred. Basic QA stuff. I've done QA for many years. This is really basic. Somebody dropped the ball. And Yoshi P he's very involved in validation. This is why I have a lot of respect for him as a dev, because he takes great pride in personally validating every inch of the game that he can get his hands on. In this case, he did not. In this case, he did not get to this part. If he did, he missed it too. And that's pretty bad. So the latest message that came out was today, and this was another drop ball, because the initial, I copied and pasted this in Discord. I'm glad I did. Part of the message. The initial message said this. It was like an update on the system. It was a very, very general message on the update of the system. And it says, the winners of how, this is not what you see on the screen. This is what was posted earlier. The winners of Housing Lottery have now been displayed correctly. If you have been selected as a winner, please proceed with the purchase of land. Or if you have already purchased the land, please continue to enjoy various housing contents. And then it went on to give this kind of like a finality message. Like, it sounded like things were fixed. So a lot of us rushed in, logged into the game to see if our house was there or if we won or lost. Lo and behold, it's the same thing. So what they were saying was what they were trying to say was this message, which they've actually updated the message completely. Now it says instructions for players seeing correct housing lottery results. In regard to the ongoing housing lottery issue, for those seeing the correct lottery results, so that means that you went in and the correct lottery results were there, we ask you please proceed with finalizing the purchase of a plot of land. If you have already finalized your purchase of a plot of land, please continue to enjoy the housing feature. Further bug fixes or upcoming measures to restore lottery result data will not result in a redo of the lottery. There will be no adverse effect from the lottery data restoration, but in order to address this issue swiftly, we would appreciate if you could please finalize your purchase of the plot. So they're telling people to log in, check to see if you've won, and if you have, go ahead and purchase it, because that's going to help them resolve the issue a lot faster if you already purchased the land. They're probably doing some sort of a query to denote which housing plots are outstanding, and they're working from that. So if we can reduce that query, those rows of data that are returned from that query, if we can reduce that, that'll make their lives easier. That's what this message is about. So we haven't heard anything about like when they're going to do this maintenance. We just heard that it's going to require maintenance, all worlds maintenance. So the servers will be going down for hours. I don't know how many hours, but they'll be going down. to address this issue. And there have been a lot of stories. I've seen some stuff about people threatening developers, and I don't know what's going on. It's getting to the point to where when I hear about gamers threatening developers, I'm starting to not believe them. Like, not in the sense that the developers aren't getting threats, but that gamers aren't sending these threats. It just seems like it's happening too often now. Like, people are sending threatening messages to developers every time there's seemingly something big in the community. It almost seems like there's somebody just waiting to do it, because it just doesn't make sense for it to be happening this much. Like, I know some of y'all ain't got no sense. I ain't got no sense. I'm crazy. I'm crazy as ever. But it just seems, it's just like, is this real or is this Memorex? Is this some kind of a smoke and mirrors thing? What is going on? It just seems really odd that this is happening so much, that gamers are being accused of threatening developers. And the Final Fantasy XIV community, is not innocent of that. I remember there was a YouTuber who put out a scathing review of Final Fantasy XIV. I forgot this. I think it was Lazy Peon. Yeah. He put out a scathing review, and apparently he got death threats from Final Fantasy XIV people. And that was like a big thing, and people talking about how the Final Fantasy community is toxic, blah, 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 blah. I don't understand. I generally don't understand the behavior. I don't even see how people can even come to that with a video game. I don't care how important the game is to you or to your life. I don't know how people can get to that conclusion, which is why it's hard to believe that people actually do this in droves. Now, one or two doing it, I can kind of believe one or two people, but at a massive scale, it's hard for me to believe that. I'm not saying it's not true. It's becoming unbelievable because it's becoming commonplace. It's actually becoming commonplace. It's like whenever there's a delayed game, whenever there's a bad patch, whenever it happened with New World, it happened with Battlefield 2042, it happened with No Man's Sky a while ago. No Man's Sky just got revamped. That's why it came to mind. All these games that had problems, Anthem, every time there was a problem or a lot of bugs with the game, you hear about death threats. I'm just like, it's too consistent. Something like that is too consistent. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to the topic at hand. I expect we're going to see maintenance within a week. I'm thinking next week, maybe by next Tuesday, they'll probably have everything tested and ready to push out, because they're gonna deploy some fixes, and then they're gonna probably do some internal testing, and they're probably gonna do a lot of testing, probably regression times 10 testing, because I'm pretty sure EuroCP is not happy with the outcome of the situation. He's not gonna, break out the whip and crack it on the backs of his devs or anything, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna triple check, quadruple check again, and then check again when they think they got it, before we actually get it. And the good news is that, I didn't mention this earlier, is that they're not going to run a subsequent lottery until they have verified the verification of the verification that they verified the verification of the verification that it actually works. There's going to be a lot of checks before they do another lottery. It's a mess. There's no other way to put it. It's a mess. This is a bona fide hot pile of garbage mess. No way to sugarcoat it. Can't really make excuses for what has happened. But what I can commend is their response. A lot of what we say, and it's kind of cliche, but it's like, a lot of people are not judged by the action that they do, which is bad, but how they respond to it. You can't ask for a better response than this. For real. When there's a game-breaking bug in other games I've played, it would take 2 days for the community manager to craft a reply that they're working on it. Let alone for them to come out with multiple replies since then. But then the producer puts out 2 incredibly detailed explanations on Monday. The problem surfaced on Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Here it is Monday morning, and we got detailed explanation of everything, an action plan, and what they're going to do about it. So you can call me an apologist if you want, but I'm going to say this. The problem itself, the issue, the housing problem, is a hot garbage mess. No excuses. They should have found this. They should have found the testing. There's no excuse for that. But their response has been A+. What they're doing now as a result of the problem has been A+. You can't find anybody else in the industry that does this. You can't. If you can, I'm going to call you a liar. Liar, you're a liar. Nobody else will respond this fast. Nobody. Not even in IT, not even in companies out there. Nobody responds this fast, right? And that's really all you can ask for. When it happens, when the tomfoolery happens, when something breaks like this bad, The thing you can hope for is that the developer responds in a way that's favorable. That they maintain lines of communication, number one, tell you what they're doing, what they're working on. That's all gamers really need, honestly. If they get that, they're generally okay. Final Fantasy XIV's dev crew, they've gone above and beyond. Like, we got a detailed technical explanation of what the problem was in 2 days. I'm telling you, man, other games, you would get a community manager response in 2 days. That's what you get. Or it would take a week, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks until they figure out how to respond. Anyway, it's a hot mess, but I'm glad that they're responding the way they are. And I'm looking forward to things working because I really want a house in Final Fantasy XIV. I do. I'm not like, you know, pitchforks and torches or anything like that, but I really want a house because housing, I don't think you know, MMOs are all about motivation. They're all about motivation, about keeping you playing the game. Houses will motivate you to death. Not death, but like they'll motivate you a lot to do all kinds of things in the game to make your house better. It's a big motivator to stay playing. Not only from just like a things and decoration stuff, but from a social aspect. That's why people still play the game. Like, there are some people that don't even do dungeons. They don't do raids. They just go into housing and just go into underground clubs. They just go in basement clubs and they just hang out with friends. That's all they do. That's their game. And that requires a house to set that up. Anyway, guys, I'll give you the links to all this stuff. I don't know if I guess I can post all the links in the show description. It's a hot mess. Yoshi P and crew are working on it. As soon as we hear something, we'll talk about it, but it's a hot mess. It's really bad, but thankfully they're looking into it. Check it out, guys. Enjoy the content.